one of my first questions is fishing. I mean, why wasn't it ping pong with John or bowling with John?
Because how long could ping pong go?
Well, clearly a long time with you and Dennis.
Well, no, but that could. I mean, I stretched that ping pong out as long as it could possibly go. But
what is it about
fishing was the perfect thing. I mean, one, there's that mystery thing about fishing. You know, it's like that always got me since I was a kid, where there's the water, which is like a veil, and then when you pull something out, it's kind of, you know, magical. And then there's the locations. There's fishing. There's, you know, I mean, what could have been better? What I wanted to do next was robbing with John. And for real, like me and Iggy Pop would go and break into Martha Stewart's house and change her curtains, you know. Break into Bob Costas' house, and, you know, more like we would bring stuff like fake Mickey Mantle signed baseballs and leave them all over his house. And I really wanted to do it. And I felt like I was going to do it, and I'd move to Africa, you know, because it's basically a felony. But the real problem was that the crew would all have been considered. I mean, I can't tell you how many lawyers I approached to try and do this, and they said, "I'm not even going to talk to you about this idea, John." But I thought it was really inspired. Robbing with John.
At what point was it? Was this because that could be a reality TV show right now, and nobody would balk, nobody would bat an eyelash. But was this pre-reality craze?
Yeah, it was it was like after they came out. When is that? '98. So that, yeah. Why are they leaving? Am I boring to you?
Probably a bathroom break.
No, but so, you know, you think it could work now?
I think you could probably call Spike TV and do Robbing with John. I think it would work like that.
I'm down. I'm down. I'm open.
All right, if anybody here is from Spike or knows someone from Spike, or HBO,
they wouldn't do it.
Never know. Or call the Japanese investors who did. I mean, are you still in contact with them now?
Yeah, they just wrote me the other day. You know what? They deserve so much credit for actually. They just gave me the money to do this thing. And then in the midst of it, they had a guy in America who was kind of creepy and dishonest, but the people once in Japan, they gave me the money to do this. Then there was this disaster on my end. I don't know, it's too long a story. On my end, it was a disaster, and on there, and the show was just stuck. And then they went bankrupt. They had no money. And then the guy, we were on tour in Japan, and the guy said, "We must finish fishing with John." And you know, there was no financial incentive now. It was just like, he had to finish this thing that he had started, you know. And
it was the honor.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Let's bring some honor back.
With Robbing with John.
Well, yeah. You didn't have to go there so fast, but that was quick of you. But.
I do want to get to the narrator. Okay, well, we're going to take some questions, but just Rob Webb, the narrator.
Yeah.
I mean, his voice is extremely recognizable.
Yeah, I made him a star. I told him I'm going to make you a star, and I kind of did, you know.
So he wasn't the guy from 60 Minutes or like.
No, before that he was working. I mean, he was a top guy, but he wasn't that. You know, not the cable. Get rid of cable. Those ads.
Yeah.
You don't have them here?
Like now?
Yeah, like a year ago.
I don't know. It's Canadian television commercials.
Oh, they're great, these commercials, but they're using him kind of like I did. But look, I do voiceovers a lot, but this guy is just. I could write anything, and he would say it, and it would sound true. And I don't think hardly anybody else could have pulled that off, you know.
But he wasn't anybody. Like, did he do anything before that was recognizable?
That was recognizable? No, but he was doing a lot of, but nothing that had the humor tilt to it, that using this serious voice to tell you that your sandwich was on fire, you know, I mean, there was nothing, and he could say that, he could say, and he could say anything.
And he didn't mind, he was game the whole time.
Well, there was this, I didn't know, and we did the first one, and the line is, "The fishermen are covered with sores and boners."
And you wrote that. You wrote all the narration.
Yeah, I wrote the narration, but I thought, I don't know this guy. And he's come in there, and he was the top guy who was recommended. He was the most expensive. Is he going to quit? And I was really worried he was going to be offended and walk out because we weren't paying him his normal thing. And Rob, do you know what a boner is? He said, yes, I think so. And then as I kind of got that he got it, it made it easy to just, you know, he's so good. You just, you know, it's great to work with somebody like that.
You know what? I have tons of questions about him, but I want to open it up to the floor. Does anyone brave enough to get the questions wrong?
Why do they have to be brave?
You know, it's intimidating. There's, you know, everybody's watching you.
You know what? I got to tell you, I would never ask a question. I'm too shy to do that. I mean, I know you've all come here to hear me, but I would never sit in an audience and go, I would never do that. You should all just shut the fuck up.
All right, I think I saw someone put their hand up over there, and we have a roaming microphone. So.
Can you describe the scene of you editing? What does that look like? Set that up for us.
Editing these?
Yeah, you've got all that footage, you sit down to edit, what does it look like?
Well, I explained the one with Jim, you know, so we had 12 hours of footage of us fishing. It was just like, what is this, you know? And then also it was like, the first two were like pre-Avid, you know, that digital stuff, so you would edit this thing down and you'd have to go all the way back to the beginning again to lay in 8 seconds and then I mean, it was just a nightmare. But those actually, the Tom one, probably the editing is better to do it the long system. And then you got an editor, you look at the logs, you know, it's okay with this, you know, and you have to watch everything. And you get so tired of yourself. It's just like, man, I don't, you know, you get tired of yourself. And then you got to make the story. They took a long time to edit. I mean, they really took a long time to edit. And I think that the real thing of the show is in the editing and in the narration, because otherwise it would just be a couple of jerks fishing. You know, so, which you can see quite often on TV.
You know, I'm picturing this process where you're watching all this footage and you're thinking, you know, how am I going to actually turn this into a TV show? But when we were watching this here with all the people around, there's beats, there's timing, and I mean, it was literally roaring with laughter here, which is different than sitting and watching it in your living room. But when
I actually started bringing people, because you learn, so I started bringing people into the editing room. And it doesn't matter when they left, you just can kind of feel what's right, and you make notes, you show it to, you know, you have a few people come by, and we brought, David Blaine came by. And he didn't laugh once.
Of course he didn't.
No, he's got me. But,
what was David Blaine doing there?
David Blaine I met, this was before David Blaine, I was in a restaurant. He comes up to my table, and it's just like this guy. And he comes over to my table and says, John, can I show you a few things? I said, oh, God. And he does this stuff. He takes out a deck of cards out of his pocket, in the cellophane. He says to the guy next to me, name a card. 3 of clubs. So, okay, now rub your finger along the bottom of it. And the 3 of clubs comes up, actually, the rest of the cards. I mean, you've never seen him do anything except for take the wrapper off and he's holding it. Then he asks, how do you do that? I mean, I don't know, magic stuff, maybe this is easy. I mean, he did stuff that was just like, I started reaching for the credit cards to make sure they were still in my pocket. This guy, I mean, he was astounding. And I ran into him a few more times, and so I asked, man, nobody knew who he was yet. He hadn't set himself on fire or anything yet.
Would he make a good fishing partner?
You know, there's a thing which made the people good where they kind of were like secure enough of who they were so that they could almost let their show business thing go and be cute. You know what I mean? The people who were the best are the people who were kind of cute. And like Tom is cute, Dennis is cute, Willem is cute. I mean, in a way, and I don't mean that in any kind of pejorative way. It's kind of like, but it's just if he would let go enough to do. I think he would. Yeah, I think he would be good.
He could make fish appear.
Well, if he was doing magic all the time, that would freak me out, I think.
Okay, let's open it up to more questions. Anybody else want to put their hand up? And okay, we got a couple in the back over there.
Was there any other people that you had approached to potentially be part of this? Because just from seeing Matt Dillon, it seemed like it was kind of a chance occurrence, like it was a little bit uninspired. I was just wondering if you actually had someone in mind that you really wanted to
Who I wanted to do for that show was Flea and River Phoenix together. And, but River was such an animal rights act, I don't think he would have done it, you know, I mean, but me and Flea had been finishing, and Flea is like, you know, you got your pal who all you have to do is sit opposite him at a restaurant and neither of you can stop laughing because the other one's so ridiculous. That's how we are with each other. We just kept, it probably would have been a terrible show.
I just wanted to say one final thing. One of the things that we didn't get to see tonight, which is one of the things I take from Fishing with John, is the scene with you at Jim Jarmusch shark fishing, in which you have a piece of bread and a gun, like waiting.
It's cheese.
Cheese, sorry, I thought it was bread. But yes, that was a really great
That's
part.
not a question.
It's not a question. I just wanted to, that was my final note.
Thanks.
And if you could do it today, who would
Well,
you
Flea I would do first.
Yeah.
I would do Roberto Benigni. Roberto Benigni is, if I've ever met a genius, it's Roberto Benigni. And I really feel bad because I think that we don't know that over here.
Where would you go with him?
Well, he's afraid of the water. I mean, he really is afraid of the water. He doesn't like the, I went to Jamaica with him once and it was like, okay, Bob, we're going to the water. We'll come back in a couple of hours. But he really doesn't like the water. So we would have to, I mean, we would do somewhere in Italy and somewhere where he could fish from a bridge or something to be as far. I mean, he would never go in a boat. He would never go in a boat. I mean, he can't swim and he really is afraid. I don't know, who would you like to see on the show? Nobody. I would love to go with Bill Clinton.
You have a fascination with presidents. You tweet to Obama every time.
Well, that's just to be annoying, and I feel like, you know, people tweet these mundane things. I just feel like whatever my mundane thing is for the day, I feel like if I send it to the president, it's okay.
Has he ever responded to you?
No, not yet. I think he's been a little busy.
2 questions, is that cool?
It's okay with me.
The first one, how much of a narrative is premeditated before you go to shoot?
Oh, almost none.
None?
Well, with the Willem one, actually everything we planned in the Willem one didn't really end up panning out.
I mean, you guys dying?
No, that was us dying wasn't decided until 80% of the way through the editing. It was just like, let's have us die. And the editor said, you can't do that. And so once you tell me I can't do something, of course, that's what I did. But they're not that much. With the Matt Dillon one, because I knew, so I invented that fish dance thing, and that was like the last day, and we found that was kind of premeditated, but not, only because I knew we were going to have to fill it up with something. So we found that guy to do there is a dance, a special dance, but not that much. I mean, certainly not the narrative that you end up seeing. You know, we just go fishing, and then you add this stuff in the editing room is really kind of what happens.
Roughly how much footage would be shot to
give
you that, like, basis?
I mean, 6 to 10 hours, I guess, you know, and then, yeah, roughly, probably more with the Thailand one. It's video, you were just shooting all the time, you know.
And the second question, in the opening sequence, the second shot, what fruit are you eating?
What? There's a second shot. What fruit am I eating?
Yeah, you're standing on the boat and you're eating something green. And
Oh, they're grapes.
they're grapes.
The Costa Rica thing? Yeah, those are grapes. Why would you want to know that?
I guess it's a quick enough shot and you moved quickly enough that I didn't notice what it was. And it looked exotic.
Grapes.
You and Willem look like you're really getting, I mean, he seems like he's just the most fun.
Well, he's just so much, but he was so good at that. I mean, he likes, you know, Willem, you know, you're a kid building a fort in your living room. He's really good at improv. He doesn't care looking like a dope, and I love him. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we would have been the same if the camera had been on or not. I mean, it was kind of, you know.
But what's happening behind the scenes? I mean, who built the hut? you've got crews in other boats. You know, can you give us a bit of a sense of?
Each one was so different, and it really made a giant effect on the show. I mean, the hut was Stephen Thornton's idea to actually construct it, and he made it in Manhattan and then brought it up there and then redid it. I don't know if that was the way to go, but the hut thing kind of worked, and it was not an easy thing to do. By Thailand, we had the right people. You know, assistant director, I mean, the assistant director made all the difference, you know, but on the earlier ones where we didn't have that, it was really nasty, you know.
Because you're directing and participating.
Yeah, and it kind of threw almost every guest out of whack at some point, because I'm sitting there, but I'm going like, wait, camera B has to be moved back over there, and you look at it, it's going to fuck up the sound, and the boom is going to be in the, and it take, you know, you're out here with me, like, and then it's something, we're talking, and I'm pretending like, and then it's just hard for the guest, you know, like, to get their head around, and then go back into, like, pretending there's no camera, and which you kind of like, I have to sort of self-hypnotize yourself to thinking that there's no camera, you know.
Or the giant squid.
Well, the giant squid wasn't thought of until years after we shot it, so.
It's still elusive, eh?
Yeah, well, no, now they're starting to show up.
They found one.
Yes,
yeah,
and every
in
time
New Zealand, I think,
and every
right?
time anything about a giant squid, I mean, I get like 1 million emails about like I'm really actually interested in this one. Like,
You mentioned in the commentary with Dennis Hopper something about this glowing light on top of one of the limestone cliffs.
man, I'm never going to be able to explain that to you guys in a way that's going to make. We're in a boat and we're driving along, and we're like this cliff going into the. And that was one of the nicest moments. And it was like just in these squid boats, like the breeze hitting your body is so nice. And we saw this thing. I mean, we just saw this weird glowing thing that went on forever. And we tried to film it, and it didn't show up on the video. Well, I don't know what the fuck that was, but it was something.
But did you guys talk about it after and try and figure it out, or was it just like a kind of?
I know Dennis was like, "Oh, I saw something amazing. I don't want to talk about that anymore." So, you know, that's what he was like, kind of like. You know, you see a flying saucer, and it's like, "Oh, I wonder what that was." Well, you know, it just, you know, he would just move on to the next thing.
He was hopped up on sugar the whole time, right?
Yeah, he's addicted to a Diet Coke, which is for real. I know a bunch of people addicted to Diet Coke, but he was like, he brought cases of Diet Coke with him.
To Thailand with him.
To Thailand, and went right at the beginning of that trip when we were going to go on those squid boats, and you know, and there's all these people, like there's this little fishing thing, and it was kind of a little seedy there, and they're all drinking Diet Coke when we get to the thing. And he goes, "Oh, Dad," goes, "Oh, they do have Diet Coke here," and he tells his assistant, "Okay, Satya," and then he realizes they're drinking his Diet Coke. Dennis Hopper's not somebody I would like to cross. You know?
If you could just speak about your soundtrack process, and also
The
specific,
process.
or just something about your soundtracks. And
You mean on this or soundtracks in general?
soundtracks in general, and then specifically if there was music in between with your artwork. If you could
Yeah, that's Queen. That's First and Royal Queen from Queen of All Eras record, and Nezrin Wolf put that video together with the band. She worked really hard on it. I don't really have a process for films. It really depends on the situation of the project. You know, you're doing a Hollywood thing, you just try to not.
But you play with you. It sounded like you were with the same players throughout the whole.
I used a lot of the same guys. I mean, you know, somebody can play, and you know.
That's okay.
No. It's such a broad question. I mean, I could. You know, you have to be more. No, don't get shy now. Wait, come back. But give me more. You have to hold it down.
Just because as a musician, it's like it's a totally different thing. Filmmaking and music, they go together, but they don't always go together. And you seem to do a very fine job.
Thanks. No, they're completely different. Especially scoring for a movie. It's more like a crossword puzzle or something. You're like figuring out. You know, there's the timing, and it's like then they edit 5 frames out, and it's like you have to make. And it's like you try slowing it down, but then it ruined the groove. Then you have to rewrite something, and then. But what I would do I'd watch the movie twice, and I'd sit there with the guitar and the tape recorder on without even stopping and just yell, this Q34. And I would just, and then I would go back to those, and it would work. It would use much more from an intuitive thing that's like starting with, you know, having it sync locked up with the keyboard, and then, okay, we'll start and do it again, or maybe that. But to do it like from kind of almost an unconscious kind of intuitive, that seemed to work the best.
Thank you.
And for the episodes, I mean, you were quite careful in your selection of what kind of instruments you used and what kind of...
Well, each one had, yeah, we wanted to have it colored, you know.
Like even the sound effects, you know, putting the frog sounds...
Well, the frog sound, I mean, I had a whole thing with the frog sound, and everybody thought I was nuts. I had this thing where I had this tape of frogs, and I had spent a lot of time, like I'm weird like that, you know, if you ever had an MRI, or if you're in the jungle and you hear the cicadas, and I will try to figure out, okay, that's 5 against 7 against what, and then, you know, and I'll go, so I won't let it go. It's like how, you know, and I will try and figure it out. So I was trying to write that string quartet for the one at the beginning where me and Tom are in the canoe. I was trying to write it off this frog tape that also has this harmonica in it. And then, because it got transferred analog, the pitch of the sound, the frogs drifted. And I had worked so hard, and then I was, well, what's the difference, you know, it's frogs, you know, no, but it was like, no. And I had to get it back to where it was, and everybody thought I was nuts, but I'm glad I did it. I'm sure it didn't have any effect on anybody here, but, you know, when you see something that's good, and you don't quite know why it's good, you see something when it's bad, and you don't quite know why, it's like somebody just put the extra effort in somewhere, you know. The frogs might have not made any difference to anybody, but...
Chalk it up to the frogs, so,
yeah.
you know, that extra step. And music, what kind of role does it play in your life now? I know you play less than you used to.
No, I don't even want to talk about it. The loss of music is incredibly painful, and I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, you know.
Then I have a way to turn that positive, because the artwork that you do seems like an amazing way to transfer that creative energy.
It got there. I mean, I just did it to do it at the beginning, and then it got there about 4 or 5 years into it. It amazed me that it did. But the artwork, the painting has as much, is just does the same thing for me.
Is it a similar process to making music?
That germ of that thing that comes through you, that thing that's not even John, that thing, that pure bubble of a thing, that's the same thing. All the practical stuff is different, you know, and there's not the love you have with the musicians, but there's also not the irritation of the musicians.
I want to ask about Marvin Pontiac.
Okay, but you have to make a more specific question.
Okay, no, that was my preamble to it.
Okay.
Do you guys know of Marvin Pontiac? Those of you, what's that?
Where does he come from?
Where does, yeah, okay, let's start with that question. Where does Marvin Pontiac come from?
You mean the fictional character, or?
Marvin Pontiac, okay, why don't you tell us who he is?
I made a record where I'm singing under the name of Marvin Pontiac, but because I can't sing. And so I needed a sort of a character to give, so I invented this guy who had an African father and a Jewish mother from New Rochelle. And the mother went insane, and then the father died, I think. I invented this whole bio. And then I was going to release it like that, and I got these quotes from David Bowie and Iggy Pop and Leonard Cohen and Flea, and all saying, you know, that he was a great genius, you know, who had been influential to them when they were young, and I put it out, and there was this kid, he was a kid at the time, Jamie Scott, who was my assistant, who played guitar on it, and he played so great on it that I had to give him the credit. So I had to list the musicians, because I felt, but by doing that I made it clear that it was really not something that was recorded in the 50s, but recorded now. And then the press, who had gotten this advanced CDs, but without the musician's name on it, and the ones who felt like they made, yes, I knew about Marvin Pontiac, you know, and then we had this publicist who chickened out in the middle. He didn't want to, you know, cause nobody was supposed to know him, but he chickened out in the middle because he didn't want people to stop talking to him. So he told people, And then the press people who thought it was for real and claimed they knew who he was, you can't do a project in blackface, you can't pretend to be an insane person, you know, it was, they were upset with me.
And all that was your attempt at singing. It was your music.
Yeah, because what John Lurie sings, that's like Telly Savalas sings. I mean, I was just like, I can't sing, you know, it was like, I had these musical ideas, and I had these songs, and I, you know, I just created a character, a mask, so I could do it easier, you know.
But you sang the theme song to the show, right? Fishing with John. Is
yeah, and part of that's out of tune. Out on the water. I'm trying to get out on. Yeah.
And by the way, it's become an earworm for me that I can't.
Yeah, a lot of people complain to me about that.
Do you get earworms?
Yeah.
What's the most recent?
Bad songs.
They always are.
No, they aren't. I'm actually trying to figure this out. Did you hear about this?
About what?
Okay, you didn't hear about it. One night I was drunk, and me and Nezra were out on the street, and I wouldn't let anybody pass unless they told me, what was the last bad song you had stuck in your head? And it was a fascinating anthropological study about who would stop, how they would respond. You know, they're kind of like, I'd never allow a bad song to be stuck on my head. It's like, you know. And then I broke him down badly, but you can tell who will answer, who will stop, and I got almost everybody to stop, and then it's a fascinating thing. I mean, it mostly is bad songs, but not always. That Adele song, the Rolling in the Deep, that was stuck in my head, but I think that's a good song.
But I think there's a science to stickiness, to get a song.
I can write stuff that will stick in your head. Yeah. I don't know how it does it, but I know what will, and I wrote some stuff that was on purpose to stick in people's heads.
They're actually doing a lot of research about it here in Montreal. There's
really, because I'm fascinated in this, because it's usually a bad song, but it isn't always a bad song.
I noticed in the Dennis episode that you had an anecdote about another Dennis the Menace. And I noticed the shirt he was wearing that was really similar to Dennis's shirt. And in the previous scene you made, you asked Dennis if he's ever been called a murderer before. And I don't know if you purposely wore that to look like Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, you're way
I'm way off?
Yeah.
Okay.
And even Dennis was offended because I was talking about Dennis the Menace, but I hadn't even made the connection in my head.
Okay.
And I guess, it's like your name was Dennis in the 50s and 60s, and everybody bugged you about it, but I didn't even occur to me, but that was a true story.
Okay.
I think he thought I was making it up.
That was a pretty.
But I love his line where he goes, "I didn't know you had that's how you got your start in the business." I thought that
was. What does Rob Webb look like, by the way? Because I think we all have a picture in our mind when we hear him talk.
I mean, he's not like this old guy, which I thought when I started he was going to, but he's he's got a beard and kind of 5'11", 6 feet. And I don't know how to describe what he looks. I don't know.
But he's different than what we would picture, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he doesn't look like God or something.
Would it have been different if you had narrated it, you think?
I couldn't have pulled it off.
You got the voice.
Not that little thing where it's like what I'm saying is, there's a certain wise-ass thing in my voice, a certain urban thing that would have made it not, this is true, this is a fact. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I couldn't have pulled that off.
I understand. There's an authoritative thing that he has that's
yeah, there's no accent. I mean, it's very even notes. There's not that much personality behind it. And yet, it's solid. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. Whatever he says...
It's kind of like what you want in a bass player. Thank you. Are we done?
That's it.
Oh, I feel like the class is over. Okay, good.